Good afternoon, welcome. Our first presentation this afternoon is titled A Case Study on Mapping and Rebuilding the Bakersville Utilities After Hurricane Helene by Zach Peterson and Mike Schrader from the City of Greensboro. Zach is the GIS analyst for Greensboro's Water Resources Department, and Mike is Greensboro's Water Operations Supervisor.
Good afternoon, everybody. Like Al said, I'm the operations supervisor in water resources with a, we ain't clicking here. Yeah, there we go. I'm operations supervisor in water resources. My main focus is working on the distribution side of our system, working on water mains, valves, services, hydrants, and things of that nature. I've been in this industry since about 1998, and I've noticed throughout the years, especially the last 10 to 15 years, more focus on the GIS side and record keeping to make our job in operations, I say easier, but have more resources. Today we're going to talk about the Hurricane Helene's impact on Bakersville, communications breakdown, and the utility mapping status. Now in Greensboro, I talked a little bit about GIS and my role, and here's some of the Esri suite products that I use and am very spoiled with in Greensboro. This screen here, this is a custom water map. I can pretty much sit and look at that screen and find out size, diameter, material of my pipe. I can find out average pressure in our system. I can find out water flow direction. I can see open work orders. I can see abandoned lines. So I can plan a lot from sitting in my office and looking at this map. Also with hydrant flow testing, I can track average pressures and water direction looking at hydrant flow testing. The screen down here, the bottom is a water main break dashboard. That's very helpful in my role because we track our water main breaks, and it helps us, one, group in water main breaks to build our capital improvement program and trend with the weather. So in the colder months, I know when to ramp up my own call. But that's just some of the products I use in Greensboro, and we can also use these on our phone. So we can use these same products on our phone. I've probably heard before this week that about the storm and how much rain it dropped. So Hurricane Helene hit western North Carolina, and a lot of people was wanting to go help from everywhere, right? But you had to have a call to help. We had boots on the ground 48 hours after the event. September 28th, we got a call for help from NC Waterwarren. We're an active member of NC Waterwarren, and our director, Mike Borchers, is the current chair on NC Waterwarren. So we had a call to help. We had a certificate that got us past barricades that could get us anywhere in western North Carolina that was drivable, and we had to have a certificate with us when we traveled. You can see the other picture showing us traveling as a fleet, and I'll talk more about that in a later slide. NC Waterwarren is a group of agencies that's come together to form help across the state of North Carolina when you have a disaster. All right. On September 30th at 3 a.m., we rolled out over $1 million worth of equipment and personnel, headed towards western North Carolina, knowing this is what we was gonna see. Total darkness, right? We knew when we reached Morganton, North Carolina, we was pretty much gonna be cut off. And we had to do a lot of planning. Part of the stipulations from NC Waterwarren for us to go help, we had to be self-sufficient. We had to have our own food, our own water, our own equipment, personal hygiene, sleeping arrangements, everything. So in the 48 hours before we rolled out, we bought some $50 walkie-talkies. So this is how we're gonna communicate, because we know we're not gonna have cell service. We had paper maps trying to help us get to western North Carolina if 40 was closed. We knew 40 was closed at some point. You can see in the other picture, where we had to take our own water for drinking, hygiene. We stored food in coolers. We had MREs. We left out with about 800 gallons of fuel, 300 gallons of gas, and 500 gallons of diesel to help fuel our fleet. Luckily, we procured fuel in Bakersville. I'll show you a picture coming up where there was a line of cars in Burnsville sitting trying to get fuel. But there's a local company in Bakersville, Young Oil, that said, hey, we got fuel. We're bringing it in on tanker trucks every day. I'll fill you up every day. I'll fill your tote tanks up every day. How are we going to pay for it? I don't have a credit card. You don't have service. Paper receipts. They let us write down every gallon we got and pay afterwards. And keep in mind, all the stuff we was traveling with, I want to talk a little bit about situational awareness. All the stuff we were traveling with, other people wanted what we had, needed what we had. So we had to know we were going into safe areas with what we were traveling with. Picture on the left is September 30th. We rolled into Asheville, North Carolina, and set up for the first night at the convention center. Picture on the right here is just the idea of being self-sufficient. That's a small enclosed trailer with a washer and dryer, generator, and fresh water. That would give us the ability to wash clothes if we needed to. Didn't know how long we was going to be out of town. Sleeping arrangements, we left out with sleeping bags and tents and cots. We spent the first night in the convention center, like I said. The rest of the 3-week period, we stayed in a hotel with no water, which had its own challenges. Here's a picture of our crew rendering aid in Asheville, Black Mountain area on the first day. That's an 8-inch line that I was told serves Black Mountain. It comes out of the Asheville water treatment plant. We found out the extent of the damages in Asheville, and we couldn't help. They had so much damage on 24 and 30-inch line, we wasn't equipped to help. So at that point, NC Waterworn sent us out to Bakersville, North Carolina. Where's Bakersville? I never heard of Bakersville before that day. Never been to Bakersville. I did not know I was going to meet some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. These people had lost everything and were still so thankful for us being there working, offering us food and offering us water. But Bakersville lies just below Rome Mountain on the North Carolina-Tennessee border. According to Wikipedia, it consumes 0.8 miles. Population of about 500. We get to Bakersville. The first day I'm working, we cut off from the rest of the world. I can't talk to any resources in Greensboro. I can't make a phone call. When I leave Asheville every morning, I'm telling my loved ones, hey, if I don't get back by midnight, start looking for me. So we hear a buzzing. Notice the buzzing was a tethered drone they were using for communications. And then we seen these trailers. Cows on the hill, different kind of cows. Cellular on wheels. Never seen that before. So it got my wheels turning about communication, and apparently my team in Greensboro was also thinking, so we got a Starlink. Here's my pickup with a Starlink on the back. That Starlink gave us the ability to FaceTime, text. We couldn't make a call, but we could still communicate with the outside world. So that was a big help. And along with, we know stuff changes all the time, and especially in GIS and maps, but along with that, our route changed, sometimes daily. Here's a few pictures just showing some of the stuff we've seen on the way. If you'll notice, we got a bunch of power trucks in front of us, and on that particular day, this is the main road going into Bakersville. On that particular day, they were working on power lines, and we had about an hour detour through some of the smallest mountain roads I've ever been through in my life. And we was pulling a 40-foot pipe trailer. Here's another example of traveling that was coming back to Asheville at night. The travel distance was 65 miles one way from Asheville to Bakersville. Another example of some scenery we've seen here, you see that's in Burnsville. See a line for fuel. Had we not procured fuel in Bakersville, we would have spent a lot of time trying to get fuel for our equipment. All right, we in Bakersville. You see a yard hydrant. That was Bakersville's only source of water for 2 weeks. There was a well right behind that yard hydrant. There was a constant flow of people coming to get water to live. So when I seen this, I said, hey, I've never worked in a system that had a well. I need to learn this system. I knew they had water leaks. I knew they needed repairs made. So about this time, I kept asking, how's this run? How's this run? How's this run? And everybody kept saying, ask Jameson. Ask Jameson. So that day I met Jameson Burleson, who is the city of Bakersville, or town of Bakersville's water and sewer guy. And his whole town was wiped out, but he took the time to put me on the side by side and start showing me his system. And when I started seeing his system, we started talking about asset management. I said, y'all got an asset management program? No. But Jameson could take me to everything in that town, put his foot down and say, there's a valve right here. It goes here. Surface goes here. So at that time, I started thinking, hey, we need to capture some of the stuff we're doing. Because as you can see, we've done some pretty major repairs and changes to the system. This is about an 80-foot relay on a water main through the park in downtown, or the middle of town. And when we started laying this line in, we couldn't find a water main break in the creek. So we finally decided, hey, if we got to get water to that side of town, we need to relay this line. I started trying to take pictures. And I said, hey, after about 5 pictures, I'm going to forget what I'm taking pictures of. And if the next flood wipes this tree out, it's going to be useless. So once again, myself and the people in Greensboro had kind of the same thought. It was like, we need to get Zach in here. We need to get Zach to start putting stuff on the map. How many times you see a track hoe riding through downtown with a trench box? Here's a picture of the existing water line, and you can see how far we were relocating it. All right, let's cue the sewer. We got the water repaired. This picture is from 2024. The picture above it is from about the same angle. See how much the water moved? The manhole was exposed on the top picture, and it's about 25 feet from the bank on the lower picture. Luckily, I'm going to skip one slide ahead. Luckily, when we went to start cleaning the main sewer trunk system in town, everything below ground was still intact. Had that been washed away, it would have been a major undertaking to relay that line. But they only lost the above ground structure. So we still had the below ground structure to tell us this path. We just had to clean it. We just had got the water system fixed. So versus taxing the water system with our high velocity cleaners and combo trucks, we brought in a pump and pumped in existing water out of the river to flush out the sewer system. Jameson's treatment plant is just downstream from where we're at. Here's another example of above ground structure scattered, but below ground structures intact. This gave Zach and his guys the ability to come in and mark these, put them on the map. I believe this is Highway 226 going into Bakersville. On the right, there used to be a sewer line there. Here we are relaying the sewer line. That was another feature we needed to capture. All right, so we got the water and sewer put back together, but we're still flushing out the water system. Here's an example of how much sand and silt and debris was left behind. We then had to start cleaning the stormwater system, because as we were flushing out the water system or the distribution system, we was flooding out streets again. Here's an example. Right behind this door, there was a live fish in the store. But so if you look here and then go inside, you can see the picture. Look at the watermark. Another example of solids left behind. This is a really cool picture. Everywhere we looked, there was people working, helping out. This helicopter just landed beside where we was working to bring, I don't know what it was bringing some kind of supplies, but we just wanted to throw that picture in to show me. We've seen a lot of people helping out and a lot of people working. And my last slide before I bring Zach up, This is on the other end of 226. You got an 8-inch water line that's fully exposed. That line was leaking. We made a repair on it. But just to kind of drive home what we're talking about, this is the perfect time to put this line on the map. This C900's got years of life left in it, but it don't have a tracer wire. It's not on the map. We're getting ready to backfill it with rocky backfill, and you're gonna know it's on the side of that road. But guess what? It took us over an hour to get permission to close that road. Can you imagine trying to close the road just to find a water line? Now's the perfect time to put it on the map. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Zach Peterson. He is a GIS analyst with Greensboro, and he's got some more interesting slides to talk to you about. Yeah.
So, interesting story so far. So, this was the first week they were there. We get a phone call, come to my office, it's the boss lady. So we had heard about Bakersville, we had heard about operations being there, and we just wanted to help. So when we got the phone call that there was something we could do, we wanted to answer the call. So when we were given 3 days notice that we would have to have everything that we could use in those 3 days in our truck: power, GPS equipment, food, tents, the whole nine. Everything had to be in the truck. And then my wife absolutely wanted me to bring stuff down. So it was even more of a truck. It was super full. But we were wondering how we were going to do the job that we do every day. The job we do every day is we map water and sewer assets inside the city of Greensboro, water, sewer, and stormwater assets. We survey, we put it in a map, we provide it to all of the different departments and sections that need it. We're a service provider, what it looks like. So we are there, we get our instructions to go, we know where we're going. In about 1 day, we figure out we need to do some research. We need to do reconnaissance on where we're going. We start mapping out. I had to select one person to go with me, John Bolin, our specialist. He's over there. He probably doesn't want the spotlight, but I'm gonna spotlight him anyway. But I decided we were gonna take him and we were gonna do some homework. We had to figure out what Bakersville's system looked like. We had to know what roads that were available, how we were gonna tackle this project from the get-go. So, after gathering all of our resources, doing as much mapping as we could, we roll out with the next rollout. So they did shift changes. We had some guys that were already there. They were coming home. We were gonna come back. It was a convoy situation. It's kind of very similar to how you see power trucks on the road, and they all convoy up and they convoy back. That's exactly how we did. So we wanted to prioritize safety. We wanted to prioritize getting the job done and just basically helping map the repairs that needed to happen. So in this slide, we are showing when we get there. I don't want to talk about that yet, though. Okay. So we roll up in the first convoy. We are there for the first day. John and I are kind of like shell-shocked. Literally, it's 8 in the morning. We come down the hill into Bakersville. The sun is shining, and you see every person in the town of Bakersville looking at you, going, "Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping." People stopping on the road, people talking to you, "Hey, mister, thanks for being here." So obviously my truck was completely full. It was unoperable. We could not operate out of it. We had to unload the truck, and we wanted to drop off some supplies to the nearest aid station. We get there. The first person that talks to me is the lady, and she said, "I know exactly who you are," because I kind of introduced myself. And I said, "Hey, I'm here to drop some stuff off." And she said, "I know exactly who you are." And I said, "Okay, I've been here for 30 minutes. How do you know?" And she said, "I took my first shower in 9 days." So that kind of tells you the impact of what you're doing in here. And so we went directly and we met this guy named Jameson. And so we pull off in the park, Jameson gets in the truck, there's this huge, I feel like I've known you in another life, get in the truck, and literally there's this huge trust. He knows that he can get in the truck and talk to me. He knew that I knew that there was this crazy guy getting in the truck, but he was the utility worker, the utility manager for the town of Bakersville. We did a 30-minute ride along. We went directly to lunch and formulated a plan on how we were going to do this, and we executed. So this is us actually, we mapped every water valve, every sewer, manhole, every repair job in the town of Bakersville. So, but we wanted to execute that, but how did we execute that? We have survey equipment. We use Trimble right now. We're a Trimble shop. We have survey equipment. We use RTK. So we usually get our RTK off the SIM card, pull it off the cell phone tower. But we remember, this is no power, no water, no comms, no nothing. So we called our friends at Duncan Parnell and we said, look, we know you have the L5 band. We know you guys have a subscription model. In this time of need, can you guys help us out? The day before we left, we field tested everything. It went up and operational. We got some really good ratings, some really good error off of it as far as it was really low. And we were like, let's go. So we executed, and this is some of the things that we saw. We had to learn a brand new system from scratch. We had never had a well. We're surface water. We take, all of our water comes from lakes. So we had to learn about wells, elevated tanks. We had to find new places that we had never learned before, and we did it all in basically 3 days. So then, okay, so we get the job done. We go and we execute it. So what is our deliverable? We wanted, when we talked with Jameson later, we learned that they'd never had a GIS, didn't have as-bills. That's literally what we live off of. So with what we live off of, we were like, okay, let's see if we can at least give them a product. So aside from a GDB deliverable that we did, we obviously wanted to give them a paper map. This was one of the first paper maps we delivered. It has their entire utility, water and sewer on it. We actually, after a secondary phone call with Jameson, we figured out we were about 80 to 95% confident that we'd mapped everything that they had. We had a phone call, and after that it was like, oh, man, you only missed like 3 manholes. I was pretty impressed with that, and I think they were too. So this background image is the 7-day-old image from, and I don't know who delivered it, I can't remember, but this is the 7-day-old imagery. Our trucks are in this photo in the park where we were doing work in Bakersville. The sewer treatment plant is right here. This is where a lot of the destruction happened. Due east of here is the Tow River. The Cane Creek is the major creek that goes through Bakersville. So this is a confluence. Bakersville is a confluence of 5 creeks, 1 major creek, and they all empty into the Tow River. Due east of here, 1 mile is the Tow. The Tow, right here in this map, had a railroad track just literally ripped right off of its trusses, right off the foundation. So we're talking a lot of water and a lot of time. So one of the things, obviously, as a stormwater guy, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna throw the floodplain on there and see what happens. 85% of their utilities are in the floodplain. So we were like, okay, at least we can give them something to do planning off of, something that they can do asset management off of, something they can do planning for repairs. Buildings are not gonna be put back in the same position they were put before. How do we give them something they can work off of, something they can move forward with? So this was one part of it. Quick story on this one. So this is the newest imagery, or the newest elevation image that we were given. I can't speak right now, I'm sorry. And we threw this on because this is a crazy interesting story. Town of Bakersville 911 Center 2 years ago was located right there. The town of Bakersville is the county seat. of Mitchell County. Mitchell County's EOC is located right here on top of this high elevation. You can imagine if this happened 2 years prior. So obviously, a lot of things would have changed if that had not been relocated. So that's a very good positive thing. So one of the things that we looked at is now, how does the floodplain compare, or how does the, basically the special flood hazard area compare to what we actually saw in real life? So one of the places right outside of Bakersville is this location, right by this bridge. This is one of the few bridges that actually stayed crossing the Cane Creek. So this is 537 feet wide from point to point, and it matched the special flood hazard area, 0.2%, 500 year. Matched it just about perfectly. So they obviously experienced something like a 500 year to 1,000 year flood. This is the bridge right before that obviously didn't make it. One of the things I kind of want to talk about that is there was a bunch of controversy and a bunch of hearsay that you saw. These folks didn't show up. FEMA was not there. One of the things that I saw that I think was just absolutely crazy was there were LZs, landing zones. One of the temporary landing zones was the field where you saw the helicopter that landed beside our crew. The initial landing zone for Chinook helicopters was behind the school. It was a guarded area, just like a landing zone, and it had military crawling all over to protect that site while things were happening, but they were dropping off supplies. Directly behind the school is the Dollar General. Directly behind that is a road going up for residential use. That residential use had a creek, one of 5 that confluenced in Bakersville. Immediately across that creek are bridges, and those folks could not get the supplies that were landing, that they could almost throw a rock and hit that helicopter that was landing with supplies. So I think that's some of the things that led to a lot of controversy and a lot of things. There were people there. It was unbelievable how many people stopped and said thank you. It was unbelievable how many people stopped and said, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. I can only imagine what it was like to be a person from Bakersville seeing a convoy of trucks of people you didn't know showing up to help you. So what are some of the accomplishments that our crew did? Obviously, this list is vast by the operations group, but we delivered some incredible maps. I feel like we delivered a product that Bakersville, since they had never had a GIS, since they had never had a copy of what their actually assets look like, I feel like this is going to help them move forward. I'm not going to read this long list. You guys can go back. We don't have a whole lot of time. How are we on time? Oh, right on it. Good. So, the call to action. 2018 was my call to action. I was sitting at a table with a friend of mine, Josh Norwood, and he is a GIS manager in the South. When we had another hurricane, he would tell me stories. I was in the EOC for days and days and days. How can I help? How can anybody help? Just give me somebody to help. He didn't see his family for something like 14 days or something like that. It's crazy. He's one GIS guy. He cannot do it all. We are a GIS collective, and we're so powerful, and we have so much resources at the palm of our hand. We got to do something better than what we're doing right now. So there are 3 ways that you can go about this. If you're a utility, let's start here. You can be a member of NC Water Warren. If you're supervisor, it is not a cost. It is really more of a membership to say, hey, look, please join us. If you need aid, we will come. If we need aid, please come help us. And it's a mutual relationship on that. GIS Corps, it's out there. It is a website. Go hit it. They're all over the world. This is a global collective. And then obviously NC Terms, you can do that with the training. Obviously my training, I was starting the training as this hurricane was happening. I didn't really know the resources. I reached out to my people and they were like, here, start taking the training. I know you can get involved. So I started taking the training and I just happened to get called up through NC Water Warren. So basically that is kind of the end of my talk. But what I would really like everybody to do is to please give a warm welcome for Jameson Burlinson, the Utility Director for Bakersville.
Thank you. Like Zach was saying, my name is Jameson. I am the Public Works Director for the disaster zone you've seen on the slide there. It was an interesting slide. I hadn't really talked to these boys about what the presentation was going to be like. They just asked me to come speak. And the slide that attracted my attention the most was that blacked out slide. Because I was on the other side of that blacked out slide. We were in no man's land. My family, we lived within about a half a mile from town, right along the same creek that flooded my town. Actually flooded my house too. But we just kind of converged, the fire department, the community did, and we just kind of went into survival mode. Now, the day after the disaster, I didn't know the extent of how damaged my system was. I couldn't really grasp it. I don't have any SCADA system, and even if I did, it would have been useless. But so I tried to get boots on the ground myself to get to my resources. I've got 3 different wells that feed this system, and gaining access to them was my top priority. Of course, I wanted to keep people in water, try to get people to water and have water. And so, but it was I could stand up here for hours and tell you stories about my experiences, and I could stand up here for hours and tell you guys just how big of an impact Greensboro had on my life. By no means it was divine intervention of them finding Bakersville. They got turned down by Asheville, and then they got turned down by Spruce Pine, and so they ended up in Bakersville. And so without a doubt, they were meant to be there because they saved my tail. They done 4 weeks worth of work, and it would have, I'm a one-man show there. I do water, wastewater, sanitation. We have 2 full-time employees, the town clerk and myself. And so the work that they done in 4 weeks would have taken me 4 months to do. I mean, they got me back up on my feet. I mean, I had people with water. They could take baths in 14 days. I lifted my bull advisory in 16 days from the disaster. And so, I mean, and it would not have happened without these guys. Now, where do we look at? I know this is a GIS conference, not a water conference. You guys don't care about utilities. You guys care about mapping the utilities. Well, I've already used the maps that Zach and Sean have provided for me in multiple different occasions. Now, grant you, the map that I use is in here because over the last 8 years, I was thrown to the dogs. I had to find it myself. All right, and I've recorded things in my head. But when the DOT comes knocking for a utilities map, when they're doing a project, a road restoration, which they are, and a sidewalk project, which they're doing, right? I actually just sent over copies of a certain section of water line and sewer and utilities to them from Zach's map this week. And so it's a big deal. I didn't realize mapping was such a big deal, but it's a big deal. You guys even have a conference about it. But but I appreciate the opportunity to come speak, and I really, they said one requisite was don't brag on us, but I have to brag on them, all right? And it was just phenomenal. And Zach was telling me, well, he tried to explain the technology you guys use to map while I was in the field. He's like, well, we use satellites and it sends signals down from like 360. I was like, man, that's awesome, but it's not helping me out. But I really do just want to give a shout out to Greensboro and what you guys done for me. But it's a privilege to come and give a little insight, and turn it back over to you, Zach.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that you could do this on a larger scale? So say a city that's larger than Bakersville. Do you think there's any way that it could be done as quickly as you were able to do it?
We had a few more days. We did 200 and probably 200 points, 210 points-ish in 2.5 days.
Okay.
And that's with crawling over heat piles, debris, you know. And not only that, but we had one crew. We popped every manhole lid. We lit out every invert. I mean, we actually understood the system.
Yeah.
We had to literally understand and figure it out in 2 days. So yes, do I think it's possible to expand and get bigger? Yeah, for sure. And I think it needs to be done it needs to be done on a statewide scale. We need to find every utility on eastern and western North Carolina that's of very small size. They have very little GIS assets, and there's no reason why we couldn't at least provide them a surface map to let them start and give them something, because obviously it's going to be a lot easier to do that mapping when there's not a disaster. Next question. Yes, sir.
Is this area not affected in the 2004 floods?
Jameson.
The '04 floods didn't necessarily affect the town as much, no. It affected the watershed down below us and the Toe River caught, quite a bit of that. But the town of Bakersville itself there, we catch one major watershed. And you can like look up the holler and see where Jan Creek starts, and it catches two big mountain ranges. And in '04 we didn't have that. Yeah.
So you can actually see several creeks coming in. The next one, yeah. Next question. Thank you very much, guys.